Hi guys, this is gsml.com and I'm here with a review of the Huawei Honor 6. This is an affordable mid-range phone that has partially some high-end specs on board. The product was released in summer 2014 and it's priced right now on Amazon at $350. Once again, a mid-range phone with some high-end specs. If you look at the design closely, you'll see that the device resembles a bit a Sony Xperia handset, or maybe the iPhone 4, or maybe the Nexus 4. It has glass at the back, glass at the front, obviously. However, it manages not to be very slippery, which is a great deal of achievement for a glass phone. The sides are made of plastic that resembles metal, and I guess there's some metal in here as well, because they do feel sturdy. This model has a bottom that's made of plastic, clearly, and overall it has a solid frame, and it feels a bit like an Xperia Z device, and also one of those Johnny phones from China. It sits well in the user's hand, and it has some straight edges that may not feel comfy if you're planning to do very long phone calls and long gaming sessions. The one-hand usage is easy, and there's also a special one-hand option that you'll see later on. Interestingly enough, there is no Huawei branding at the front and no Huawei branding at the back, only the Honor branding. We have a dotted pattern at the back. You have to look closely below the glass to see it. The handset is rectangular with rounded corners, and sadly its sides are pretty easy to scratch, especially in this area here close to the lid. At the front we got an earpiece, front camera, we got sensors, we got a notification LED in this area here, and we got a useless part below the screen. Usually capacitive buttons would go here, but in this case we got virtual buttons, so there's actually no reason for this area to exist. At the back we got the camera and dual LED flash plus the mono speaker at the bottom. At the top we find the audio jack, microphone, and as far as I know this is an infrared emitter, while at the bottom we find the microphone and micro USB port. On the left side absolutely nothing, while on the right side on off button and volume buttons with pretty okay feedback, and a small lid flap that covers up the SIM slot and micro SD card slot, micro SIM and micro SD right here below the lid, and it's very easy to scratch it with your nail once you're propping it up. The phone measures 7.5 millimeters in thickness, it weighs 130 grams, and Huawei claims it's made from 6 layers of material layered onto the frame. Okay, I would say that the design is overall pretty much okay. It's one of the pleasant glass phones, one of the non-slippery ones. On the hardware side, what we're getting here is a 5-inch JDI display. It's a non-IPS LCD screen with a Full HD resolution and support for up to 10-finger touch. This model also comes with a medium-sized bezel, if I can say that. It's not thick, it's not thin, and inside we have an interesting CPU. Is the Hisilicon Kirin 920 octa-core made by Huawei. It has 4 cores of the Cortex A7 kind, clocked at 1.3 GHz. Meanwhile, the other 4 cores are Cortex A15, clocked at 1.7 GHz. The GPU available here is a Mali T628 MP4, clocked at 600 MHz. Inside the phone we have probably its highest spec, 3 GB of LPDDR3 RAM, and the storage versions are 16 or 32 GB for this phone. By the way, it comes in black or white, and its microSD card slot accepts card of up to 64 GB. At the back we find a 30 megapixel shooter with dual LED flash, while at the front there's a 5 megapixel camera for selfies. As far as the connectivity goes, we got LTE, there is Wi-Fi on board, obviously dual band, Bluetooth 4.0, micro USB 2.0, GPS, GLONASS, FM radio, infrared, DLNA, and NFC in some countries and in some versions of the phone. In the section we like to call others, this model brings Dolby Digital Plus technology, accelerometer, gyroscope, proximity sensor, and compass. Now we've reached the area called battery, and we're dealing here with a unit that's a 3100 mAh battery, lithium polymer. It's a 3.8 volt battery or an 11.8 watt-hour battery. In our test, well, we did a bunch of tests to check out the battery performance, and as far as the video playback is concerned, we're able to get, let's see here, 8 hours and 58 minutes of HD video playback in a loop with Wi-Fi on and brightness at 50%. So basically 9 hours of video HD playback with a full battery dropping down to 0. I would say that's pretty much okay. We're going past the OnePlus One by 5 minutes, and we're beating the Philips Xenium i908 that I recently tested. That one had 7 hours and 26 minutes. However, if the video playback time is decent, or better said long, the continuous work battery life is kind of a letdown. We did a PC Mark test and we achieved 3 hours and 35 minutes of continuous work battery life. This is a bit underwhelming. The HTC One, for example, scores 3 hours and 13 minutes, the OnePlus One 5 hours and 15 minutes, and the Galaxy A5 6 hours and 1 minute, so it can be much better than that. Overall, video playback is good at 9 hours, but continuous work time 3 hours and a half, not very good here. The charging time is pretty much okay. 2 hours takes from the battery to go from 0 to 100%, and you also get a 5 volt 2 watt charger bundled with the device. Now if you go into the settings area, you're going to find some interesting options related to the battery. First of all, we got something called power saving. Obviously there's a graph here showing me how much battery is left. There's something called power monitoring. It's scanning all the apps and functions that have been opened up. It allows you to manually optimize. It shows you the optimizable issues, allows you to finish up stuff, and then come the actual power saving options. There is the ultra mode that will keep only the basic call and message functions available, only recommended when the battery is low. There is the smart mode that automatically adjusts the CPU and network for a balanced performance, and there is the normal mode that slightly adjusts the CPU and network usage to maximize performance. Once again, ultra mode will only let you use the call, text and other basic features, basically like Samsung's special ultra power saving mode. So those are the modes you can play with, but there is an extra little something here. Aside from power saving, there's something called screen saving, and this one requires you to restart the device. Okay, so it started up again. In this mode, as I said, you're able to extend the general battery usage by about 20%, and as far as I know, you will reduce the screen image quality. There's a rumor out there, I don't know if you believe it or not, that the screen resolution goes down to HD instead of Full HD in this mode. Only a rumor, but I tend to believe it. Overall, you get an extra 20% of battery life, which is pretty cool. The conclusion about the battery is that we're getting an okay battery here, especially in the video playback and charging area. However, if you're an intensive user, you plan to do a lot of gaming and app usage, you just saw that about 3 hours and 35 minutes is what you get. An extra aspect I want to show you here in the battery section is that you can see which apps and features use up the most battery life, and we'll see that in a minute. So device started up again, pretty fast boot, keep that in mind. Shortcuts still loading, and they're still loading. The pictures also loading. Okay, here we go. Once again in the battery section. Here you can see the battery status, the apps that are using it, and what I wanted to show you is the ultra power saving reminder and power info. This shows you power intensive apps and consumption level, and also shows you a list of apps that you can keep running after the screen is off. You can set them on or off. This is exactly what I wanted to show you. So overall, good battery in video playback and charging, not so good in intensive tasks. Now I want to discuss audio playback and the speaker at the back, with the mention that we don't get bundled headphones, at least in the version we're testing here. We got a custom music player with a pretty minimalistic user interface that's also pretty nice looking. It's minimal, it's clean, and let's see the settings. We got filter settings here, by length of time, timer, home screen lyrics, and the ability to clear the cache. And we also have a DTS option that can be set on or off, but let's actually listen to a tune. This is the DTS mode. So I'm guessing you heard the differences between the DTS mode on or off. A cool thing here is that if you hold the handset in landscape, you'll see this beautiful animation of all the covers of the songs and their album art. So that's about it. I have to say that the experience here is loud, clear, the sound is crisp, we have good bass, and the sound is warm, deep. I like the percussion sounds on this device. Sadly, once again, no bundled headphones. And if you go into the settings area, looking up special acoustic modes, this is the sound area, volume, silent mode, phone ringtone, DTS mode obviously, and there's something called karaoke, allowing you to plug in your device with a cable to a bit bigger speaker or the recording screen of the karaoke application to enjoy the full karaoke experience. Anyway, if you're into karaoke, you have this option available here and you can have fun with it. Now let's see how this handset did in a decibel meter test, because we did that. This is the decibel meter. At the front of the device, 81 decibels, while at the back 82.4 decibels, so the muffling is not that bad. Also, the sound doesn't make the device stick out. The volume is good but not excellent. For example, the OnePlus One had 90 decibels, Galaxy Note 4 85 decibels, and we have 82.4 decibels. And meanwhile, the Oppo Find 7 had 85.1 decibels, so it can be better, but this is also pretty good. At least there is no muffling, the sound is okay, we got good bass, good frequencies, good percussion, but once again, sadly, no headphones here. We do have FM radio, so if you come across a pair of headphones, you can use those to power up your radio. Now, as far as the screen goes, this is a 5-inch Full HD screen, LCD, it's a non-IPS, keep that in mind, non-IPS. A low temperature polysilicon screen. We got a simple video player here, as simple as it gets, and the DTS mode is also available in this section. So the usual test video, DTS option right here at the top, making its presence felt. We don't have many options in this player. The image is a bit oversaturated. We do have wide viewing angles. It may not be an IPS, but the viewing angles are wide, not very wide, just wide, although there's a bit of darkening once you turn the phone. Other things worth mentioning about the screen, finally we got it to work. Okay, other things worth mentioning is that the screen is pretty bright, a bit reflective, and it's also not excellent in full sunlight. The blacks aren't very deep, they're almost bluish sometimes. The pixels are of the RGB stripe kind. And we measured the brightness level of the phone with a bit of a surprise. Actually, its brightness levels vary. First of all, these are the pixels of the screen under the microscope that we used, and then comes the brightness. We have 3 different levels of brightness, 1, 2, and 3. So the top part of the phone, the top part of the screen offers 399 lux units, while the bottom part 372 lux units, this one here, and the middle part 383 lux units. So the brightness varies at the top, center, and bottom part of the phone. If you want a comparison, a quick comparison with flagships from last year, the Xperia Z2 offers 366 lux, so we're doing fine, and the LG G3 only a bit over 300 lux, so I would say we're doing quite fine. The brightness is overall okay, and the only defects of the screen are the black, that's not very deep, and the slight oversaturation. You can also customize your experience by going into settings, pressing display, and pressing color temperature. You got default, and you can choose warm or cold depending on your preference, or go back to default. Then there's wallpaper, font size, font style. Font size is a normal option, font style is a bonus option. We got daydream, indicator light, display carrier name, brightness, sleep, and auto rotate screen. So overall we got a good display here, and now let's go to the camera area. At the back we have a 13 megapixel shooter with a Sony IMX214 sensor. So once again, Sony IMX214 f2.0 aperture, 28mm lens, is the same sensor as the one on the device OnePlus One, Oppo Find 7, and Nexus 6. As far as the interface goes, I really like its simplicity, and let's find the camera application here somewhere. Here we go, camera. It's got this castle here, and as I said, it's focused on simplicity. It reminds me just a little bit of the interface from the iOS devices. So first of all, the interface is focused on portrait, as you can see right here, rather than landscape. And on the left side of the screen we got options, straightforward, also oriented in portrait. We got panorama, HDR, audio note, best photo, all focus, watermark, and settings. So take them one by one. Panorama is pretty much a regular thing. HDR, audio note is basically a photo and 10 seconds of audio. Best photo, you take a series of photos and pick the best one. All focus, you take a shot with multiple shots and multiple exposures, multiple focuses, and then you choose to refocus the image as you please. Watermark allows you to put a funny watermark on top of your pictures, like the temperature, calendar, or various other inscriptions. Okay, getting back to the settings here, we go to the actual settings area where you can find the resolution. It's 13 megapixels in 4:3, 10 megapixels in 16:9, 9 megapixels in 1:1, and so forth. GPS tagging, preferred save location, mute, audio control, timer, touch to capture, capture smiles, object tracking, touch and hold shutter button with various purposes, volume button feature, double press volume button, volume down key when the phone is locked, ISO going up to 800 in this setup as well, and white balance, image adjustment with a few settings like exposure, saturation, contrast, and brightness, and that's pretty much it in the settings area. Okay, now on the left side again we got the front camera shortcut, we got the flash options, and then in this area you can find the beautiful color effects that can be applied to the image, the gallery shortcut, and the modes. We got photo mode, we got beauty mode with a slider that will remove your wrinkles and other aspects, and finally we got the video mode that comes with its very own options, once again on the left side. You can take videos in Full HD, 16:9, stereo, HD, VGA, QVGA, preferred save location, GPS tag, mute, volume button function, beauty mode when filming, object tracking, stabilizer, and HDR video. Beauty mode and HDR only apply to 720p video if I'm not mistaken. Okay, enough about the settings and options. If you keep your finger pressed on the screen, you'll able to drag around options to adjust the focus and metering as you please using various landmarks. Speaking of focus, I have to say that this camera has a pretty fast focus. However, the picture taking is actually kind of slow. It may seem fast, but the actual process of the picture taken is slower than it seems here. Okay, the flash on the camera is very powerful, I give it that much. And other things worth mentioning is that we have a fluid zoom, very easy to use with a swipe motion. And now let's take an actual picture of the castle and analyze it carefully here. The level of detail seems great. There's not much noise here. I like the lighting, I like the shadows, the details, and the colors, but let's see more of that in the gallery we've taken during daylight. So that was the sample photograph, and now we're going to use this huge amount of photos that we've taken using this handset. These are taken during daylight. It was a very sunny day, I have to say that from the start, and we're starting off straight with an HDR, so regular shot, and then HDR shot highlighting the details, and it doesn't exaggerate with brightness like some other cameras do. In this case, HDR makes images more realistic, as it happens with this fountain here. So let's have a better look. A regular picture, HDR picture, better lighting and better details makes everything more realistic. Now back to the regular shots. What we've got here are realistic colors. Everything looks pretty bright. And another attempt at an HDR, also with realistic shots. An attempt at a selfie. The selfie is quality, but the background is pretty poor. We also tried the skin smoothing thing and it worked just fine. And when your sun is in front of you, the camera tends to have a bit of a problem. You can see these reflections here with green. And another attempt here, some more problems, selfie in sunlight, another shot with sunlight. you should generally stay away from having the sun in front of you when taking shots with this camera. As far as these toys are concerned, the gloss that's applied to them by the sun is nicely pictured. However, when the sun is bright and you're taking shots of a colored toy like this one here, the background kind of fades in favor of the foreground color. There's a slight blur in the background, and this macro is actually pretty nice, the one of the tiger. Very good details and a pretty nice macro, as I said before. You must know that some of these shots were taken to get that refocus thing to work. As you saw before, there's this option here that once pressed you can touch anywhere to refocus if you want. That's the option we mentioned before, and it took us a lot of tries to actually get it to work. You'll see that later on. We then have a very wide panorama, as you can see here. There is good stitching, nice details, no artifacts, and generally a pretty good panorama. And next up, we got here the timestamp, or that stamp option you saw earlier, applied right here. And then we tried out a series of effects, color effects. Some of them are actually kind of funky, like this one, or this one, or this one. Okay, so I have to say that the colors are very vivid here and at the same time realistic. The pictures are crisp, we got good exposure, good white balance and focus. However, when the sun is very shiny and there's color in the foreground, the background is kind of dimly lit. Okay, so here we tried out the flash. We're under the bridge in a park, a regular shot with flash, which is totally impressive. Some more images, and this is a zoom test, a regular shot from afar and zooming in using the pinch to zoom option, and the quality stays pretty good for a zoomed in shot. Even more shots and the sunlight yet again pulling its tricks. We did quite a bunch of shots using this camera. Nice colors once again, nice texture, nice gloss, and even as you zoom in you'll see there is no major noise revealed. Another attempt at a macro and a few more attempts at getting that refocus thing to work, like this one here, where we tried to refocus on something else but we couldn't get it to work. Overall the camera is good, and I have to say that in conditions of low light the camera is able to go past ISO 2000, which is quite impressive. Considering that we have the same sensor as on the Nexus 6, I would say that the pictures are less impressive than the ones of the Nexus 6, that's for sure. Okay, and now one last attempt at that refocus thing. So focusing on the Mickey Mouse head and focusing on this lamp here, you can clearly see that once you focus on the headlight, Mickey Mouse becomes blurred. Once you focus on Mickey Mouse, the headlight becomes blurred, and that's what the refocus is all about. So overall it's good, this camera sensor and the pictures, but not Nexus 6 good. Now as far as the videos are concerned, let me just get to the video area where we have quite a few clips to show you. Okay, so the videos were taken at Full HD, 30 frames per second, 24 megapixel bitrate, they're MP4 files, and we got stereo audio at 96 kilo per second in AAC. So let's start things with this video. There are violent exposure changes here, pretty bad wind captured by the microphone, and the image is generally shaky. I was quite unhappy with the exposure changes that happened too sudden. Then we got this one that comes with good colors, however it's pretty shaky as well, and the acoustics are echoey. Notice the good colors and the bad wind effects. Then we got this one with a slight loss of detail. And then comes a video that was burnt by the sun, that's clearly shown here. But the details look nice, the colors also look nice. Finally, in video 5, we got a bit of stabilization, very nice colors. the camera no longer shakes, and everything looks fine. Video 6 is exactly like the video 5, however it's an HDR video, everything is more lit up, but it's only 720p. It feels a bit too white if you ask me. Overall, I would call the filming underwhelming compared to the photo taking, and once again it's not on par with the Nexus 6 in spite of having the same sensor. And also I would call the video capture below my own personal iPhone 5. You can obviously do some photo editing here. So if you go to the gallery and pick a shot, let's say this one here, you see a bunch of options that include edit with a very intuitive interface that's once again probably borrowed from iOS. These are the filters that you can apply. Then we got the adjustments, an incredibly nice and intuitive interface. There's crop, there's changes of aspect ratio, and those are the customization you can apply to images. We're done with the camera. Once again, good photo quality below the Nexus 6, not so good video capture. I would say good video capture, but not very good. Now, as far as the performance goes, the temperature of the device reaches 37.4 degrees Celsius after playing the game Riptide GP2 with its 3D graphics for about 15 minutes. So no, there is no overheating here. Now, as far as the web browser is concerned, we got the one associated to Emotion UI on this device, and let's load up gsmdome.com, or once again gsmdome.com. Here we go. Not the fastest browser in the world, as you can see, but at least the website is completely loaded. Pinch to zoom works fine, text looks pretty crisp, and the menu is very simple here. It's all black and white: bookmarks, share page, copy link, save page, find on page, a bunch of settings related to privacy and security, accessibility, bandwidth management, advanced, and even plugins are included. Okay, since we're here, I have to mention we have a swipe based keyboard. So I just written hello. We also have a bunch of options applied here. Okay, we got settings to play with, sound on key press, auto correction, auto spacing, next word prediction, themes that you can apply, and the usual swipe options. And I'm very happy with this keyboard, very intuitive and pretty well spaced. Okay, we're done with the keyboard, we're done with the browser. It's time for the phone section. I have to say that it's nice to see that we got speed dial here, privacy protection, harassment filter, a bunch of special settings like call barring, passwords, reject call with text. As far as the quality is concerned, we have a loud volume, clear calls, OK signal, and no problems with the calling generally. Okay, now it's time to analyze the benchmarks. There's a lot of talking to do here, so you better pay attention. So this one is a handset with an octa-core processor that's made by Huawei. I compare it to the LG G3, the OnePlus One, the Galaxy S5, and a handset called the AllView X2 Soul. The three first handsets, LG G3, OnePlus One, and Galaxy S5, were chosen because their prices should be in the same range as the one of this phone over the next month or two. Meanwhile, the AllView X2 Soul is different because it has an octa-core MediaTek CPU, while the other phones have Snapdragon 801 processors, and this one has the octa-core Huawei CPU. So let's go to the screenshots and start talking with Quadrant first. A pretty underwhelming result, 10,987 points. The LG G3 has more than double the score, OnePlus One 24,000, Galaxy S5 22,000, and the AllView X2 Soul 14,654. So we got beaten in Quadrant. Next up we get Antutu with a huge score that beats every rival, 41,858. We beat the LG G3 by 6,000 points, beat the OnePlus One by 4,000 points, and beat the Galaxy S5 by 7,000 points. We also beat the AllView X2 Soul by almost double the score. Almost, not quite there. Nenamark was also tested. In this one we scored 59.2 frames per second, pretty close to the LG G3 and it's 59.9, far from the OnePlus One and it's 63 points, close to the Galaxy S5 and it's 60.1 points. We were past the AllView X2 Soul that had 57.2 frames per second. Velamo brought us a result that's pretty good. 2850, LG G3 had 2417, OnePlus One 3002, Galaxy S5 1645, and AllView X2 Soul 2624. 3D Mark is also here with a not very impressive result. I would only call it decent. AllView, 3D Mark, Ice Storm Unlimited. In 3D Mark we scored 13,646, while the AllView X2 Soul scored 7,138, so we beat it, but the LG G3 scored 16,095 points, OnePlus One 19,000 points, Galaxy S5 18,000 points, so they beat us. Next up there's Geekbench 3 with a pretty good score, 857 in the single core test, 3021 in the multi-core. LG G3 had 960 over 2333, OnePlus One 969 over 2626, Galaxy S5 854 over 2553, so we beat the Galaxy S5, which is kind of nice, while the AllView X2 Soul had 445 over 2464. Then there's GFX that gave us 16 frames per second, which is totally underwhelming because the LG G3 had 27, OnePlus One had 28, and Galaxy S5 also 27. At least we beat the AllView X2 Soul that had 8.7 frames per second. We also did a speed test that showed us 21 megapixel in download and 24 in upload via Wi-Fi. The LG G3 has 20 and 21, the OnePlus One 26 and 22, and Galaxy S5 23 and 24. Meanwhile, the AllView X2 Soul 12 and 19, so at least we beat that model. Browser Mark is also here with a score that's very low, 716. All the other models we tested beat the 1000 mark. Galaxy S5 even 3250, and the AllView X2 Soul reached 818, so even though the score is low, it still beat us. And finally, the last test, SunSpider 782, the lower the better here. LG G3 652, we beat the OnePlus One that had over 1000, and Galaxy S5 beat us with 413. At least we beat the AllView X2 Soul and it's 1074 points. Okay, so once again, the model that resembles this one closer is the AllView X2 Soul because it has a Full HD 5-inch screen, octa-core MediaTek processor, and a similar price. In spite of that, this model beats that one by quite a margin. If you compare it to the Galaxy S5, LG G3 and OnePlus One, you'll see that this model only wins about 2 of the 10 benchmarks. It would be more if the OnePlus One wasn't included. In spite of that, it has no lag, very fluid interface, and it can easily run a game with 3D graphics such as Riptide GP2. Nice graphics, everything looks crisp, responds well to commands. Nice speed effect. The levels of detail are set quite high in this game. Nice reflections and nice water drops on the screen. Okay, so you get the idea. That was Riptide GP2 running just fine on the Huawei Honor 6. Now it's time to discuss the operating system and user interface on this device. What we're dealing with here is actually Android 4.4.2 in an unusual version. As you can see, it's Android version 4.4.2 with the Emotion UI 3.0 on top of it. Emotion UI 3.0, and a very nice interface, I have to say that. There's very much white here, the fonts are very thin, and there's also a lot of gray, black, and sometimes blue, which is a very nice combo. Everything feels like iOS more than Android, which is a compliment for this device. There is a total Apple vibe going on here. All the apps are placed on the home screens, there is no special app drawer, and we have Android buttons shaped like those from Lollipop. The interface is very fluid, and as far as the multitasking go, you press that button and there are only 4 thumbnails of apps on one screen at the same time. You flick one up to close it, or you can flick up like this to close all of them and free up your process. It felt like the HTC Sense multitasking experience a little bit, and if you pinch the screen, you'll see wallpapers, widgets, transitions, and layouts. These are the wallpapers you can play with. The ones from the lock screen can change randomly. These are the widgets. Most of them are stock, some of them are customized. Then we have transitions, loop, default or perspective. Okay, and then we got layouts in 4x4 or 4x5 for your icons. Now let's get to the drop down area, which is this. The notifications are shown as a timeline, while the shortcuts are the quick settings that include mobile data, sound settings, Bluetooth, do not disturb, GPS, and even a one-hand mode that once pressed will tilt all the icons to one side and make one-hand usage easier. There's also a screenshot button and a brightness slider right there. The settings area gives you a lot to explore. The interface is very minimalistic, fonts are very thin, the background is white, and everything is once again iOS inspired in my book. Okay, well, let's see what we got here. We got home screen style that can be standard or simple. For the elderly, for example, simple is a very good idea. We got a do not disturb feature here with exceptions and allowed contacts. We have a notification manager that allows you to tweak applications and notifications, and a drop-down manager. There are a ton of security features here, which is a nice thing. And then there's something called Touch Plus. As far as I know, there's a special layer you can apply to the screen and add some extra buttons to the bottom area, the one I complained about because it doesn't have any capacitive buttons. Apparently you can buy a special film, put it on the screen, and give this device some extra buttons, which is kind of cool. There's motion control, like flipping the phone to mute, picking it up to reduce volume, raising to the ear to answer calls, shake to rearrange icons, or tilt to move icons, widgets, and things like that. Then there's the navigation bar option. You can set it up like this if you don't like it. And then there's something called More. There's the one-hand UI, as you can see shown here. The keyboard goes to the right of the screen and everything goes there, including these buttons here. There's the suspend button, which is basically a floating widget with these buttons available if you're too lazy to press the on-screen buttons. There's smart cover option and gloves mode here. That's all there is in the settings area. Overall, it's a very nice UI and it moves very fast, it's very fluid, nothing to complain about here. As far as the apps that are pre-installed go, we got a phone manager that takes care of everything. Phone accelerator, harassment filter, power saving, traffic manager, notification manager, app lock, and do not disturb. You can scan everything and see where the problem lies and what can be optimized in memory or other aspects. One-touch optimization is available here, and junk has just been cleaned up. Okay, other apps that are pre-installed, we have a phone, browser, music, videos, clock, calendar, settings, files, also minimalistic, email, high care, that sadly doesn't work in our region, not on the list. There's voice search, Google, there are tools that include weather, also with a very nice interface. Then, aside from weather, there's recorder, backup, mirror, magnifier, torch, calculator, notepad, FM radio, interface updater, downloads and voice dialer. Then top apps, Kingsoft Office, Twitter, highlights, Bitcasa, and games, Spider-Man, Dragon Mania, Asphalt 8 and Real Football. And finally, this folder here that was created later on. So those are pretty much all the apps available here, plus an extra folder of Google apps. We got Chrome, we got Gmail, Google+, Maps, Play Music, Play Books, Play Newsstand, Play Games, Drive, YouTube, Photos, Hangouts, and Google Settings. Let's see how Maps behaves on this device. Accept and continue. It found us reasonably fast. Satellite view. And I have to say that it moves just fine. One last thing to show you before the verdict is in, the lock screen. Okay, so the lock screen image changes every time. If you swipe up slightly, you see play, pause, or save options for the music, settings, and options for calendar, calculator, torch, and mirror. Okay, it's time for the verdict. This is the Huawei Honor 6, no Huawei branding here, and the pros are the following. We got a nice user interface, a nice design for a glass phone, a pretty much okay battery, about 9 hours of playback, which is pretty cool, nice power saving features, and okay brightness, a nice camera interface, very minimalistic, an okay camera as far as picture taking goes, and the lack of lag is impressive. for a phone that costs a bit over $300. On the con side, we got the sides that tend to be chipped over time. We got a battery that could be better in continuous usage, only 3 hours and 35 minutes. We don't have any headphones bundled with the device. And also the blacks aren't that deep as far as the screen goes. There's a bit of oversaturation. The refocus feature doesn't exactly work every time, and the video capture is below the quality of the photo capture. As an extra, there's a bit of bloatware here that may bother some people. I'm going to give the Huawei Honor 6 a 9.2 out of 10 for design, 9.2 out of 10 again for hardware, and a huge 9.6 out of 10 for OS and UI, because let's face it, Emotion UI is very nicely done, at least in version 3.0. So the final grade is 9.33 from gsndome.com for the Huawei Honor 6. It's a very good mid-range phone with high-end specs, some of them, very nice user interface, good camera, CPU, and pretty good screen. Too bad for the bloatware and too bad for the video capture. So from gsndome.com, 9.33 out of 10 for the Huawei Honor 6. Bye bye.